You're listening to a DM podcast.
Welcome to Over the Back Fence. I'm Di Edwards.
I'm Nicola Dale, and we're buddies of nearly 4 decades. And yes, we actually do happen to share a back fence.
We do. We love parties, people, inspirational stories, and honestly, making the most out of life.
So join us as we open our hearts, share our stories, and hear from some of the most inspirational people in the world, and have a laugh along the way.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Hi guys, this episode is brought to you by Air Women, experts in natural hormonal health for women over 40. Bear in mind it's Air spelled E-I-R.
Yeah, their products, they're designed to support energy, which we love.
We love that.
Mood, sleep,
Love that. Love
and
that.
more, helping you feel your best.
Oh, what more could you want?
We want
and
that.
honestly, we actually love them.
Absolutely
We really
love
do.
it.
And look, if you want to get a 20% discount, just use the OTBF20 at checkout for an exclusive Backfence listener discount.
eirwomen.com.au. Go get onto it.
Yahoo! And have your best
Woohoo!
life. Hi guys.
Howdy.
Welcome back. We're excited to be back in your ears right now.
I know, I
and
love it.
It's been lots going on.
Well, we've had lots of adventures, and it was really fun, wasn't it? We went down to Tassie.
I
and we
love
had
going to
Elizabeth
the map
Gilbert,
of Tassie.
I know, good old map of Tassie.
We had a ball in Hobart, and of course, someone that there's many people that Nicola and I follow who are so inspirational. One being Elizabeth Gilbert,
Exactly.
like she's really a walking earth angel.
Oh, she is.
And being in her presence was quite profound. And honestly, Nicola and I were levitating after it.
Yeah,
but
it
we met some amazing people there. One woman called Peace.
Peace Mitchell. I don't, you love it with synchronicity in life too, because we were chatting, and by the end of it, we're best friends. We got
It's
photos
crazy.
with Liz and chatting, and then she said, I was saying, where are you? Let's have a drink together. And then I said, where are you sitting? And we were in I think it was like 106 and 105.
Yeah.
And she's gone 104, and
I
I was going,
know, meant to be.
wowza.
And then she passes
And then
this
she's-
book over called Women Living Fearlessly. And Elizabeth Gill was about to come on the stage, and I
Yes.
went, oh. So I opened the book, and the page I opened is our next guest, Liz Courtney.
Incredible.
And I read the page, and I turned, I went, she has to come on the potty.
I know.
What a woman.
It was a full moon.
So,
and it was sort of like the
was.
spirits were there, really. And,
Wow.
and then I was going, wow, the picture on the book is 3 women dancing under a full moon. And I was just going, don't you love that in life? So, and then it was just
Like
wonderful.
nymphs.
So we want to hear more from who was this woman?
And last night my son's been living overseas for 3 years, and he's got a girlfriend, but he was with Mama last night. And I said, darling, the electricity's gone out. Oz Group were doing something in the
that's
area.
right.
And we sat there with candles, and he went, oh, damn, I've got to do work and whatever. And I needed to watch a few movies relative to this interview, ironically. And we sat there and talked with candles on. We communicated. It was magic, and
More
I
electricity.
thought, here we are interviewing Liz Courtney today. And on that note,
Wow.
let me tell you about this
Woohoo.
amazing woman that was destined to be on our potty and
it
in
was
your
a
ears.
universal
Truly.
gift. Yep.
Sometimes you're just stunned by the ability of some people in a tiny little life and what they can achieve. Our next guest is one of those, Liz Courtney. Nicola and I were given this book, as you know, at the Elizabeth Gilbert talk. And honestly, we thought we've got to get her on the potty. But the more I dug a little deeper to understand who she is, blown away. She's actually an award-winning film director with 55 documentaries to her slate of projects, primarily around climate change, sustainable solutions and youth engagement. She was recently recognised at the Women's Changing the World Awards in London for her work in media awareness around climate change, and was a finalist in Women's Agenda Climate Hero Award, and has been also awarded 100 Women of Influence in Australia and inducted into the Australian Businesswomen Hall of Fame. Lastly, she's produced and directed one of the largest series on climate change, The Tipping Points, and she's involved with many other youth programs, including co-founder of Youth for Planet in Europe. Well, that's the tipping point of her career, and with no further ado, I give you Liz Courtney.
Hello. bravo. Welcome,
Thank you so much for having me. I don't know who that person was.
Like, I've just got to take a deep breath after
what
that
an
intro.
Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness. Talk
What a
about
dynamic
awards, but
human.
wow, welcome. Thank you for
thank you so
coming and
much.
joining us at the back fence.
It's
Wow.
nice to have that reminder every day when you're out there at the coalface. Thank you so much for reminding me.
Wow, but isn't it amazing?
Incredible.
I sort of think sometimes, we're talking about in life and the universe being a place there, how some things you're destined to meet. And I sort of really believe that, and that's sort of like on planet Earth, and that seems to be your big passion. Is it on like nearly saving planet Earth a bit?
Yeah, it is indeed. But I think, what you talk about being in the right place at the right time, I sort of have my sliding door moment. I spent 20 years in corporate and doing PR and
Tell us a bit about
boardrooms.
that while you're on that
Ah,
note.
well,
Like, what sort of corporate?
Well, I was a partner in an agency. I was MD of Managing Director of Ogilvy PR for quite a few years.
Wow.
And I had always wanted to get to that point in my life. And I thought when the opportunity came, you can sink or swim. And I was like, let's see how we can swim. And I took that role on. But I had an amazing mentor. My regional director was in Hong Kong. And I have to thank him for having that sort of presence of mind to always believe in you and always make you believe in yourself as well and find that. And he really inspired me. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity.
Love him.
And
Gratitude.
so much
Absolutely.
gratitude to him. And
Big.
I was speaking to him one week and 6 weeks later he was passed, and it reminded me of how fast things can change in life and to always try and do the best you can with every moment of every day. So I'm so grateful for all the lessons he gave me. But
What was
after
his
that,
name?
His first name was Steve.
Steve,
and
okay,
he
yeah, wow.
really was very important in my life. And I think if we're lucky enough, we do have some of those mentors in our life that just like help us when we're on our way. And I sometimes think that they're there, but it's really important to look out for them because sometimes you can be traveling so fast, you just kind of travel past them, right? And you don't see them. So I'm so grateful for that. And then I was tapped on the shoulder to see if I'd become a partner in an agency. And I thought, if you're going to work so hard, let's have a slice of the action. So I thought that would be a great thing. We hadn't had children at that stage yet, my husband and I. So I thought, okay, let's go work really hard and do that for a while. And we took the company from 15 to 60 staff in about 6.5, 7 years. And then we actually sold it to Leo Bennett's in the US. Very funny story because my late father-in-law was head of Leo Bennett's in Australia, but because I wasn't at Leo Bennett's at the time he was alive, I could never talk about my work. And I thought he would be smiling from above when he saw that the agency got sold to Leo Bennett's, right? And that was about the same time we signed it as I was having my first son, Dakota. And I think they just wanted to get me out of the room because I thought the lawyers were sure I was actually going to give birth in the room. And
Go girl.
So that was
Work
kind
to
of
you.
where I started in PR and communications, and I didn't even know what it was to begin with because I did my degree in English and music, and somebody said, oh, have you ever thought of being in PR because I loved writing? And I just said, what's that? And they said, oh, it's this thing that you could do. And I was like, oh. And I went for a job interview and they gave me the job on the spot. So I was like, okay, that's
course.
great.
Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, yeah.
PR.
Yeah, and after I had gone through sort of 20 years boardroom, and what was really important to me in that was not just the work that I was doing, but it was also mentoring the young ones that were coming up. And I realised when we were at Cartwright's that actually the four of us that were partners, we had about 80 years of experience
Knowledge,
between
yeah.
all of us,
Yeah.
but we weren't sharing
Wisdom.
it with the younger generation. So I started this little
You brought
program
that to the fore. Good on
called
you.
JAM, and it was
Jam.
called Junior Account Manager Program. But the interesting thing is that so many people in that process, I would say to them, like, kind of what's holding you back? And I found it was so interesting a few of them would share some thoughts, and they would say, well, when I was 7, my teacher said I would only ever be a hairdresser. Or when I was a certain age, my parents said I would only be able to do this. And I thought it's so interesting how the role that we play as parents and the things that we tell our children really seep into their minds. And I said we've got to smash those hidden barriers so that you can really fly and be who you want to be. So I was very grateful for having sort of that experience to show me sometimes that young people can have these really hidden glass walls that
Yes.
you don't know are there, and sometimes they're the things that are holding them back.
And they mightn't have told anybody until they've told you.
Yeah.
You know, like if
yeah,
someone
right.
said that and they just would have kept that within and just have thought that was their limit. Wow, well done.
I see a lot of women that in a similar realm, when they've finished, the children have grown up, maybe they're starting to retire, and there's an element of that too that comes into play. And then it's about sharing that, and now this whole new phase, this new discovery. It's funny, isn't it? I've just thought of that as the other
that's
end.
I love
Too.
that.
It's a
Beginning
really
at the
good
other end.
analogy,
Yeah, it is.
because I think
You've got decades ahead.
how often do we define who we are by everybody else around us, right?
Yes.
And
True.
I think what I found was when I stepped into the film world, which was, you know, I dragged my poor husband before kids to see at least 3 movies a week. And I was so passionate and I always wanted to work in it. But I was like, how do you get from being an MD over here to being in the film industry?
That's
Yes.
my
How do
big
you
question.
do it? How do
That's
you do
right.
it?
This is
Right.
my huge question.
Yeah, how do you do
I'm
it?
dying to
and what
know.
made you do it?
Well, I just at the time when I was having the kids, I thought, this is really, really, I want to give it a go. How could I do this? And I had one of my very close colleagues, we both said, hey, do you want to go back? This is at about 4 months because we were both going, we were on maternity leave. She goes, I don't think I want to go back. And I'm like, I don't think I want to go back either. And we just saw the agency, so I was sort of married into the sale.
That was good timing.
I just had to go and do a little bit of negotiation there. And we both came out of it at the end and we said, why don't we set up our own consultancy and just do consult brand strategy, have time for the kids, time for this. And I said, and time for my hobby. Maybe I can just have a go at making a little documentary or something.
As you do.
So that's
little
what we
one.
I
did.
might go to the shops and buy
I would
something.
say-
So I just might allow time.
But it's a good way. I like people
be a
hearing
film
this
director.
because you
Yeah.
did start from, and nearly everything there is you start small, you know,
Yes.
and it's like they're without really
True.
the pressure on it too. You start on a little film which can go there. I think people, if they think they have to see the end result,
Stratosphere.
they're
That's
not gonna
right.
Go there.
But that little film, I don't know how I got this contract with ABC to make Sculpture by the Sea. And I used to go and see it every year, and I was walking around and I pitched the idea. And they said, yes, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Now we'd like it in English and Chinese. And I was like, what the Chinese? I'm only just doing English.
Yes.
And I had to really learn on my feet. And I thought, oh, it can't be that hard. I've sort of overseen making short form for different agency projects that we had and doing TVCs and things like that. It was a totally different ball. And how it ever got finished and went to air, I still don't quite know. But I think that tenacity is something that I built
Passion.
up, and my passion. And my tenacity also came from, having many, many times of trying to have children and getting so far and not getting the whole way. And so having 3 children really was such a gift. But I think the tenacity that came from that really helped me have the tenacity moving into wanting to make films and tell people's stories. So I think sometimes in life we think things are difficult, or why did I get laden with that? But if you can flip that around and say, but what can I learn from it? And what strength can I
wonderful.
take out of it? Then that sort of really helps you somewhere. You put it in your kit bag, and a little bit later in life you go, oh, I'm so glad I've got that tool. And then you can apply it to what you're doing in that moment.
Wowza, honestly, you're blowing me away already. Can I just quickly just go back when you said about, did Steve teach you some of these techniques, or this is part of your DNA, how you're thinking that way, how you're flipping different ideas? And
I think in life there are just different people who see things. I don't know if I can always really touch on where that came from, but it definitely helped me see things and also start to find out who I was and find some sort of belief in my
You.
own self
Yeah.
and in me.
I
And
love that
for
word.
everyone, it all
Self-
comes
Yeah.
back to within, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
You know?
does.
Whatever
So you
do.
were directing film, you weren't actually on the camera at any
No, I had a
Yeah.
director of photography.
Like through your career, it hasn't been actually on the camera, you've been
So
film
you
directing.
did Sculptures of the Sea, and it came out. Did it come out in Chinese, by the way?
Yeah, it did
Well done.
actually.
Good God.
But after
Can't
that,
keep
I
a good
was.
woman down for long.
But don't ask me if it made sense sense in
Yes,
China
yeah.
because I never watched it over there, right?
I love it.
They're probably saying, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
And did that
exactly.
set the seed for you to go, right?
It did, because I met this amazing person at Sculpture by the Sea. So here we go, coincidences. And
So
he
one
was...
thing leads to another.
Always.
Yeah, it does. And
Just step
I-
out there, guys.
I
Just
just
get
went
out
to
there.
his... he gave a talk down at the pavilion at Bondi, and I happened to go to it. And I was thinking, you're just like the Indiana Jones of the art world. And he looked like a little bit like a more mature version of Harrison Ford.
I like that.
And I thought,
It's pretty good
if I-
looking, Harrison Ford. don't
if
you
I
think?
put you in a hat and dressed you that way and I put you out, I reckon we could do a really interesting series. And I pitched it to Discovery.
So you're sounding like
It's
an
good.
advertising guy. I
And they
pitched it.
came- I
is
pitched it,
good.
and-
That's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a good
Oh,
marriage that way because
yeah.
you know the
So
how this
And
works.
they're short
important.
little tiny films,
So
you know, where
important.
ads. Yeah.
Advertising, you know.
Yeah,
I'm loving
you know
it.
the lingo.
And they came back and said, oh, we love it. We'd like to commission a 10-part series. And I was like, oh, my God, 10-part series, okay. And this person did geographical sculptures, but he went to work in the most remote places in the world. And he even did one in Antarctica where they managed to negotiate to move all the stones to this massive sculpture and then take a photo from space and then put all the stones back. I mean, it was seriously
So you were
amazing.
directing
Wow.
this?
Wow.
And you'd never done you'd never been involved in that arena before other than Sculptures by the Sea?
No,
or that-
actually, there was a little gap.
Something
So after
small.
Sculpture by the Sea,
Yeah.
I did pitch something, and SBS went with it.
Right.
And it
But
was
this is a big
Angels in
thing.
New York, and it was a primetime series, and we shot it in New York. And I have to say to any mum living out there, the first time I left and went away from the kids, and I was coming into land in New York, I just had that New York
Oh,
song
yeah.
blaring in
Yeah.
my...
Yeah.
Break into a song,
Yeah.
don't sing.
New York. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yes.
This is just like, here I am in New York, and I'm directing this series. It was
I've got
really
to say,
quite
it's the most exciting city
It
to
is.
go in. I used to
It
fly with the
is.
airlines with Qantas, and
Oh,
we used
yeah.
to get the crew bus, and we'd go in and we'd sing that Alicia Keys song
Yeah.
no matter what. It'd be
Beautiful.
on there.
But after 3 children in very quick succession,
It's
and
your
then
time,
suddenly
baby.
I'm like, I don't have any lunch boxes to do. I don't have any
No.
school runs to do. I don't have anything to do. I just was there for a couple
What
of weeks.
The city
capacity.
that never sleeps.
Yeah.
So you went to New York. This is to do...
It was a series with SBS, and we were actually following 2 Chinese Malay boys trying to break Broadway, and it was just the most enthralling insight into 1, music, 2, what it takes to get a musical up, 3, they went and auditioned all across the US. They went to Kentucky to do flying school. I mean, I seriously was so blessed to have this experience and see it. So that was a bit of learning on the spot. And then I got this opportunity, and someone asked me if I would direct something in Antarctica.
Right.
And this is where I had my sliding door moment. And I
Okay.
think that we all have sliding door moments in our life. They can be little sliding doors, medium size, big size sliding doors. But I actually think it's how we approach them. And if we decide to let fear rule us, we don't walk through them. If we decide that we're going to try and get over the fear and take the step through it, then there's just amazing things that are on the other side of that door. And that's what happened to me, right?
Wow. And look at this book here, what it's called Women Living Fearlessly.
Oh, yeah.
To a
So
T.
it's- isn't it?
So I'm
Yeah.
trying to get join the dots of you film directing and helping to save the world.
Oh, see, I went to Antarctica.
So we're okay.
so yeah, we're in
this is the
Antarctica.
tipping. Excuse me, this is the tipping point.
Yeah,
I love it
it's
for
a
our
tipping
friend
point.
it's
for
one
Liz
of
Courtney. For Liz Courtney, this was the tipping point of change,
It
transition.
definitely was.
And
But I
helping
did say
him,
no. I was at the dining room table with the kids, my husband. I said, I'm not going to do it. And they're like, why? What? And I had
that
actually
wonderful? Getting
seen,
this
I had
support.
actually
Absolutely.
seen a film a few weeks beforehand, and it was this terrible film where there was a boat out on the sea, and it was the wildest seas in the world, and the person in the boat died. And I was like, that was just such a bad film to see when you're thinking about going on the Drake Passage. And my imagination did run wild a bit. But I realised that all the things that I was saying were really my sort of mother guilt things that why I shouldn't go.
Just
I get it.
so
We
normal.
all we all get
you
it.
know,
You can all
three
find those things pretty
kids.
Yeah.
easily.
And I'm like, how's it all going to work? And the kids were going, no, you've got to go, Mum. And
Great.
I woke up the next day and said, okay, I'm going. And actually making that decision was stepping through that door. I didn't realise quite then when I stepped through it where it would take me. But it was 40 teenagers, and it was the United Nations Year of Youth, and they were going to Antarctica for the first Youth Climate Congress. And I look back on it now, and that was definitely my pivot point in life. And I remember waking up in Antarctica, and I was looking out my portal, and I was crying because I had never seen a place like this. I didn't even know a place like this existed on Earth. And I quickly put my gear on. It was about 6:15 in the morning. And it takes you about 20 minutes to put all the layers on because it's like minus 10 or 15. But I got up onto the top deck, and there were at least 30 or 40 people up there. And it was silent. And nobody was talking. A few people were crying. And I thought, I should be interviewing them, but I can't because I'm so overwhelmed. Imagine how they're feeling. They're young. We're in the moment.
100%.
And it was just looking at these massive mountains. I had no idea. Antarctica's got massive mountains. It's so vast. It's a scale that you have never seen before. And we just all were in the moment. And I think I saw it, but it really touched my heart. Oh. And when something gets into your heart, it's very hard to get it out. And so,
beautiful.
When we were all there, we spent 3 weeks, and I was so grateful to the people that helped me get there. And I ended up taking the first 2 Indigenous people to Antarctica, and it was a young boy from the Tiwi Islands and one from Darwin, a lovely girl from Darwin. And Malcolm and Narelle had no idea until halfway there that they were going to end up in the Guinness Book of Records. I had no idea that this was going to be such an incredible, privileged trip. And while we were there, we climbed the highest little ice mountain we could get up without, killing ourselves.
With the ice boots?
We had some boots on, but we didn't go up like really tall mountains. We just went up one to the top.
Beautiful.
And we unfurled the Indigenous flags. So proud. We all cried. It told me a lot about the youth voice. And they talked to me incessantly about what my generation, our generation here, why aren't we doing more for them?
Wow.
Why aren't we listening to their voice? And are we not thinking that what we're doing now is going to impact their life and the future generations? And they were so they were angry, they were upset, they couldn't understand. And sort of that experience of being one in Antarctica and 2 hearing their voices.
That's such a powerful.
It was so powerful. And
washed over you.
And then on our way back, we were leaving King George Island, which is your last point.
So
and you do ring the bell and you do a special ceremony to Poseidon to actually take you back over the water safely. And I think we were all crying when we left because we didn't want to leave. But there was this Russian scientist at King George Island who goes, "It is a very, very bad storm coming in. Very, very bad storm coming." And I was like, oh, this is just like a party trick. You do it for everyone.
Sure
is.
And so anyway, we're starting to head back. We're on an icebreaker. And we're about 2 hours. And then suddenly the captain comes on and says, we're heading into a very bad storm.
Very bad storm.
And I was like, no.
That's incredible.
No.
This can't be happening.
And all the decks were closed. We couldn't go out. And at midnight, I literally got my sat phone and I rang my husband, who's a rusty sailor. And I said, darling, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it back. We're heading into a hurricane. It's pretty bad, and the waves are breaking over the boat. And he just said, pull yourself together. Of course you'll be fine.
How cool.
Yes.
And he was
You're
so
an
cool.
icebreaker.
And
Yeah,
so,
strong.
and so then I'm up on the
Exactly
deck,
what we
right,
needed.
and I'm bracing the camera guy who's like trying to get some
you're
footage for me.
kidding.
And
You're bracing
the young
him.
kids are there, the teenagers, they're going, this is better than going to Disney World. This is awesome. And I was like,
Fearless.
I was just like, they're so fearless. Like, I've got to change my mind on this. And so I was so grateful. They taught me so much, but they also taught me about being mindful to be in the moment and see it differently.
So that ignited the fire in your
It did.
belly to help heal the world. Where did you go from there?
So I was very lucky that I got some development funding from Screen Australia to think about doing a bigger series on climate change.
Brilliant.
And so I really worked hard on that for nearly 6 months. It was about 9:00 at night, and I was reading a story that it was about the tipping points of the climate system by this young scientist in the UK. And I thought, wow, that is so interesting. I've never really thought about the climate as a system, and it's got all these moving parts in it that are all in the ocean and the ice sheets and everything. And I thought, wow, that would be interesting to maybe try and explore what the tipping points of the climate system are.
How they're all interconnected.
Yes, so I
Right.
just rang the
Fascinating.
number. And it was at Exeter University, and I go, hello, this is Professor Tim Lenton. And I'm like, I don't even know.
G'day.
Oh, hi, I'm calling you from
G'day.
Australia.
I got a cork hanging
Anyway.
off my hat.
The rest is history, because he said, that would be great, let's do the series. And so I worked out how much money I needed to raise, and I went and knocked on all the doors of the broadcasters in Australia. And I have to say, I'll say this politely, but I was a female doing my first big climate series, and I needed quite a bit of money, and nobody believed I could do it. So I thought, stuff that.
I love this.
I thought,
yeah,
stuff
look at this,
that.
stuff that.
I got on a plane 2 weeks
Women
later.
living fearlessly.
And I
Yeah.
went to Washington, D.C., and I
Oh,
went and
what?
knocked on every door there, and I got 2 callbacks. And one said, can you go to Atlanta tomorrow? And I didn't even know where Atlanta
determination.
was.
Yep.
Like,
Tenacity.
who knows where Atlanta is? I
Steve-O.
don't. I didn't
Georgia.
then. But anyway, I got on a flight, went down there, and I went in and
Midnight
pitched
train
it.
to Georgia.
And they said, well, this is just perfect timing. We're looking for something like this.
Put it out to the universe.
And then
What
they
was the
said-
body? Who did you go to see? Who like
It was part of NBC Universal,
Right.
and it was the Weather Channel. And
Okay.
the Weather Channel had
Yeah.
just brought all the guys from the History Channel over to start making some different
Bingo.
timing.
timing.
You couldn't get
right?
better
That's
than the
life.
And
USA.
then I said
But
to
also
them,
believing.
oh my gosh.
Headquarters there.
I'm
Wow.
so
About
proud of
it.
you, Liz.
Yes.
They said, when do you need to know? And I said, in
Yesterday?
about 2 days, because I had another meeting with another group. And you remember, we
I
used to
know.
go into the Qantas Lounge in LA, that midnight flight
yeah.
back.
Yes.
And I was sitting in that lounge when I got a message through on my phone saying we're in for the first X amount of money.
It's only at
Pop
that
the
lounge.
champagne.
That's why I wrote the thing
I'd go and
for
meet
over
you
the
on
back.
board. I'd go,
Exactly.
welcome, Liz.
That's incredible.
And
1A.
so getting that money on board just acted like a domino for the others that
What
were
a
sort of
flight
sitting on
home.
the fence. Oh my God,
best
I don't
flight
think I
ever.
even
As Nicola
slept.
just said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pop the champagne.
Yeah.
Well
Wow.
done.
And
So what
that
sort of money are we
started-
talking about? Ballpark? Like
I had to raise 2.8 million to
Oh,
make that
shoot.
series.
Well done.
But they came
my
in with the
gosh.
first big tranche of funding. And then a German group came on board, a Dutch group came on board, a Belgium group came on board, Canada came on board, and then I came back to Australia and I said, if I give this a slightly different, what I wanted to do was have a look at the scientific point of view, but the Indigenous point of view. And I wanted to find out what was changing here in Australia on our land, in our nature, in our oceans. And they really loved that idea. So I was able to go back and bring some of our really strong Indigenous roots into the Australian version, which I was really so grateful to have been able to do. But
Wowza.
here's the
It's
thing.
impressive.
I had to make about 8 different versions of this. And I had 2
was
editors.
it one film you were doing?
No,
or
it was
several series.
6 by 52, 6 by 45, 6 by 42, 48 with 5 American time clocks in it, which nearly killed me, and 6 by 30.
She's so calm.
And so the thing was, the thing was going
You
through
and I
that.
on the floor,
My best
kicking
friend,
legs in the air.
my best friend was Scotch
Silver
finger
champagne.
biscuits, and I think I put on about 8 kilos going.
So this
through
was all
that.
filmed in Australia, or this is what was
No,
filmed all over the
all
world?
over the world.
My
So-
God.
So I found
The world's
myself.
your oyster.
I found myself in Greenland 8 weeks after getting the
Have you got-
funding.
Have you
Wow.
got kids at this stage?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So your husband sounds like a great guy. Go for it, darling.
Yeah.
I'll keep the fires
Well,
burning at
Rachel
home.
Griffith.
The other
You know.
thing
Yes,
is that
right on.
we had an au pair that just appeared out of the blue.
Okay.
And
So
she
you were
came
free to
live
travel.
with us
Yeah.
for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was Greenland like?
Yeah.
Tell us about
Tell us about the
that.
countries
Yes, yes,
where,
yeah.
where this was, where you
so
filmed.
Yeah.
I think that my time in Greenland, just even landing there, we landed in Kangaluswak, which is a really old World War II base that's there.
Kangaluswak.
It's a very big, long runway, and you have to go through Denmark. It's the only way to get. There's one flight a day. And I think that the most of it went incredibly well when we were in there until we went up to Kanak. So Kanak is the furthest village in the world, and it's right at the top of Greenland.
And you went there?
And we flew there as well. Some precious moments were, before we went there, we were at Glacier Bay, and the Jackahavian Glacier, all of the glacial melt comes out through there. And we were on the water one afternoon, and we were literally in front of this massive bit of ice, and then suddenly it started to move. And I was watching it thinking, my brain was trying to work out what was happening.
Yes.
And it's the first time I've ever experienced something that I didn't have a point of reference to. And my brain couldn't actually work out what it was seeing. And it was the iceberg was tipping over. And when it tipped back, it was like 1,000 waterfalls all at one time. It was so beautiful. That was a really special moment that I remember.
Beautiful, yet ultimately
they're
melting.
Yeah,
Like this
was
is
that
so,
then another thing, alarm bells
Yeah.
going? You know, we
There were
really have to
so
take
many-
action
so
now.
many
did that bring that to
glaciers.
the fore for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Right.
particularly when we went
Frightening.
to some big ice cliffs that we were looking at, the glaciers, because they have cameras around the big glaciers and they track them all across the year. And so we were with Professor Jason Box, who runs that whole program, and he was showing us just footage of how much was changing at that time. And we flew on to Kanak, and there'd been very bad weather, so people had got stuck. And so I was sitting up with the pilots. They let me fly with them. And they said, we're going to try and land in Ilulissat if there's any clear space. And suddenly there was like a donut hole, and they said, that's it, we're going in. I was like,
Wow.
whoosh,
You've got the
down
bird's
we
eye
went.
view, haven't you,
And we
Liz?
landed on a
Wow.
mountain.
Like
It was
landing in Aspen.
pretty amazing.
Wow.
But when we got to Kanak, here's the thing, it's a great girl story. It hadn't actually occurred to me. We were going to go dog sledding, and we were going dog
Wow.
sledding out across the Arctic. And we were going to have a look at
God, you're adventurous.
how it was changing. And we went with our Inuit hunters, and we were interviewing some of the local dog sled people and some of the local fishermen, just to understand how quickly their life was
Livelihoods
changing.
change, yes.
And
Fascinating.
they were talking to us about that they just didn't know what they had done to upset Mother Earth. And they were so sad because Mother Earth was changing so quickly, and they thought it was their fault. And we were trying to tell them it wasn't their fault. And that was really quite emotional, because I saw how hard they took it. But here's the flip side of that was, about 2 hours out, I realised, with an all-male crew and male scientists, and I was thinking, how am I going to go to the toilet here? It's totally flat. No trees,
Wow.
no bushes, no anything.
Nowhere
And
to
I
hide.
was like, okay, maybe I just won't drink today. And then I was like, no, that's stupid, because I'm going to get so
Gotta
dehydrated.
survive.
And so I just had to have this moment where I said, pull yourself together and just say, I've got to stop. Everybody turn around and trust that they will, because I have to go to the bathroom, because it was so easy for them.
Yeah.
But the other thing I will say is that being in that moment on a dog sled, thousands of miles from anywhere, about -15, and I remember distinctly, and I write about it in the book, I think, hearing this little internal voice saying, hello. And I said, who are you? And this voice was saying, oh, I'm your adventurous self. I've been here forever. And I'm so glad that we're out here doing this now. And I was just like, I never knew I was an adventurous person. I never knew it.
That came to you.
And it came to me there, but then it made me realize.
Sense of purpose.
Yes, but for everybody listening,
Lovingness.
is that
Wow.
we tend to define who we
Here's
are
what Gilbert.
by who is around us.
Yes.
By our family. Our family look at us and define us. Our friends look at us and define us. Our work looks at us and defines us. But actually, who are we really? And it's not until you can take yourself out of that moment
Brilliant.
and be in something that doesn't define you at all. And then you actually start to find out who you really are.
It's very
And-
raw.
Yes.
In Mother Nature,
Very
it kind
raw.
of does
Yeah.
that. Like
Literally.
Lane Beachy
Yeah.
was sort of saying in the surf, in the water there, it
Yeah.
equalises everybody there.
It
kind
does.
of thing. And so for you,
It was
doesn't matter who you are or what you
equalizing.
do. Yeah.
And I was, yeah,
So this was really powerful moment.
very
for you.
powerful.
You went around the world. Where else
I
did you go?
did. I lived in the
Greenland.
Amazon jungle for a month.
Wow.
Wow.
And that was really another big leveler because I got incredibly
Literally
sick
leveler.
in 1,000 miles from anywhere.
Ah.
And I actually thought I could die. I felt so sick and I couldn't keep anything down and I didn't know what I had. And we were anywhere to get any help. And they found a sort of very remote village tribe where we were. And the medicine man came.
I was going to say,
and
they
he,
know.
and
They know.
he
It'd be a
made
local.
me a pot of something. I understood to drink it. And I had pills in an old cupboard that we didn't know what they were. And I had this and I drank it. And a few hours later, I was nearly 80% better. And then he came back again with another concoction and I drank that. And the next day I was up. I felt a bit weak, but I was up and moving again. And I thought, the
Saved your
knowledge
life.
that they have of what is in this forest here,
In nature.
that can help us, I was so forever grateful.
So I'm seeing
Yes.
layers and
Layers
layers
and-
and layers of
Yes.
information.
Tell us what
So
you
many
then
layers.
see.
So you-
Yeah, so you've
So
got-
you're okay. I'm listening to
So I went-
internally. I'm observing,
Yes.
taking it all on. So the Amazon would have been a big shock because they would have shown you where they're clearing it and how rapidly they are, or you just went into
No,
the Amazon jungle.
it was more to look at what are the trigger points in the climate system that are going to trigger
Okay.
the Amazon to go into a savanna.
What is it?
So what it is that if you think about South America, it's got the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic oceans around it. And so those oceans, because they're heating up, they're actually pulling the moisture that would normally fall over land, and that rainfall is falling over the ocean.
So more fresh water going into the ocean too.
So yes, so you have this pulling element taking more rainfall across the ocean. And so the Amazon, when I was there in 2013, it had had 2 mega droughts in 10 years, and they normally have 1 in 100 years. So when you have these mega droughts, the study that we went to look at in this far-flung place was where they had put the equivalent of 2 big ovals, a glass roof over the Amazon rainforest. I never expected we get to this part of the Amazon and it's got a glass roof over it. And what they wanted to do was see when you reduce the rainfall by 50% or more, what starts to happen to the big trees versus the little trees.
What happens?
And what they found was that the hydraulics in the big trees didn't have the pressure to actually push the water to the top of the tree. And so it was the big trees that were crashing in the drought. And so what happens when the big trees that cover the Amazon, you start to have these gaping holes. And the gaping holes are because the big trees can no longer sustain themselves because of the drought. And so then they're having these massive storms that come through with a lot of intense lightning, mega storms. And so the lightning was just like throwing a match to the floor of the Amazon. And the Amazon floor was so dry that you have these runaway fires. And so
this is
we then
fascinating.
went down south to see where one of the research centres was doing controlled burning of the 2 hectares, so not much. But what they found was after one runaway fire, the trees were able to get back in and grow. But after the second runaway fire, the first thing that grew back was savanna grass. And the savanna grass acted like a mat and it stopped the trees receding. And so then we saw this area that had been a rainforest had flipped to a savanna grass in a matter of 8 or 10 years. And that was the mechanism that we were looking at, because when you have a changing climate system, it means that the rainfall starts to change, the oceans are warming up, you have more mega droughts in places, you have more mega floods in places. But in this part of the Amazon, they were having mega droughts. And it was the drought process that was actually causing part of the Amazon to flip to a savanna. And the professor we had with us was Professor Peter Cox from Oxford University. He's so funny, and if anybody gets to go to a TED Talk, they're always sold out.
Exeter,
and
he's told my son he went
brilliant.
to Exeter University.
Yeah.
He did an exchange over there.
He would have
and
loved
he
it.
loved it. Yes,
But
told
he
him to go
had
and
this.
see him.
He had the theory about what will tip the Amazon rainforest,
Yes.
and it was climate change.
How's that?
And it was this trigger mechanism. So we went to explore and look at it. And they had also built these big pits that you could climb into so that you could look at the root systems and see how they were changing.
Oh my
like
God, this is
15, 20
idea of
feet.
heaven.
And he got
I
down
love
one
this
of them,
stuff.
and then he was just freaking out. And we're going, what's wrong down there? And he goes, there's a scorpion. And I'm like, oh my God. And we're just like, come up
God, you're
slowly.
adventurous.
So,
Certainly are.
so that was
Wow.
So bringing it all
Gosh,
together, what was it called?
that was called the tipping point.
Okay, that was
Wow.
called with a plural tipping
Tipping point. So there were 6.
Yeah.
We also went to Alaska to look at the permafrost melt, and we also went all through the Himalayas in India to look at the impact of the loss of water from the Himalayan melt.
Yes.
And we went all through Africa as well. So for me, you know, I was 20 years in corporate, and I always say I traded my stilettos for snow boots, but I would never go back because I found something
Stilettos for
so
snow boots,
joyful
yes.
and so purposeful. And that series really took me to places in the world that I never expected to have stamped in my passport, right? But it also was a great lesson on understanding the whole climate system and being at the front line of seeing it. And when you see something and you experience, it's in your heart forever.
This was huge. Won many awards with the tipping point. So well done. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that.
Yeah.
On behalf of all of us that live on this beautiful,
Absolutely.
magnificent
I
planet.
think I'm in awe, and I think the listeners
But-
are too.
Yeah.
I do have to say, in the last 18 months, I've done many other series, but I got to go back to Antarctica and film a new film, which is called The Giant Awakens. And
I love that.
landed back in Antarctica, but I was there sitting with my son next to me.
Oh,
Oh,
how
and-
wonderful.
Full circle.
And he came with me to run a system that I took, which was a Starlink system. I always wondered how to do a live cross from Antarctica, but you can't because there isn't enough.
Did you love that?
There's
The
not
live
enough
cross from
bandwidth.
Antarctica.
As you
can't.
do.
Exactly.
You can't use the iridium system, right? Well,
Yes.
I only discovered this. But I was reading in LinkedIn that it was saying how the Australian base was celebrating Christmas early. They were downloading Netflix. Now, for most people,
Don't
you
you love it?
wouldn't think twice about
Unbelievable.
that. But I was like, I know that's impossible. How are they doing that? And then I looked and it said that they'd been given this new satellite system to try. And so I found who was the head of Starlink worldwide, and I sent him a
Elon
random...
Musk?
No.
Yeah.
I sent him a random note on...
There's no stopping
No,
this,
I
is
was
there?
there.
You know, like
and,
it's
and I put
Agreed.
Antarctica
one
in
iceberg,
the title.
one iceberg.
And after he read it, he sent me a note back and said, this is interesting, call me. And so I had a Zoom call with him in Texas in a remote car that was driving him
You're
home
kidding.
on a screen. I told him what we were trying to do. And he said, yeah, we'd love to help you.
Wow.
And then this
Don't ask.
system,
happens.
this
So
system
true.
arrived, and I thought I need someone who understands physics, and I had an astrophysicist who was studying that, and I said to my son, do you want to come? But you have to learn to use this, and you can't let me down.
Yeah,
And he
right
did.
on.
And he did,
Wow,
and we
bravo.
did the first live cross from Antarctica.
Is that the
Incredible.
Guinness Book of Records?
Yeah, it should be.
Well
Wow,
done.
honestly.
I just want to share one thing. When I took the Indigenous youth to Antarctica, I said to Malcolm, can you tell me anything you learned from that? I was rolling the camera. I thought he'd give me some answer. And he said this, and I always say it. He said, I realize that there are some people who dream and they wake up from their dreams. And there are other people who dream and they make their dreams their reality. And that's who I'm going to be. And I was so blown away by
That just landed in my heart.
a 20-year-old telling me this.
Incredible.
And
What a
I was
gift.
just like,
Total
thank you
gift.
so much.
Yeah.
And I always think about that. And I think for our young people and for anybody listening, the thing is that you can have dreams, but if you don't believe in yourself that you can do that, and you rely on other people to help you believe that, you get much further when you actually believe in it yourself and decide to make your dream your reality rather than just daydream it.
And then
Right.
it's the energy, the ripple
Bravo.
effect from
and
you.
then,
Exactly.
Liz,
I
what,
get
what
it.
do you
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
to the people who hear that and they go, but I can't find that within myself? What's a tool or a tip we know? Because a lot of people have those self-doubts.
I think they do, but I think the first thing is trying to understand what you're passionate about. It
good.
could be you're passionate about cooking. It could be you're passionate about going and volunteering for something or helping in your community. But find the thing that really resonates in your heart. I think that's a really important thing
you
to
said
do.
that.
That's
There was
beautiful,
something,
isn't it?
one of your online, I was having a peek at Youth for Planet, which you've helped start, and one of the speakers said, what are you going to do when your children cannot breathe? You're forced to take action. So that resonated with me because at the end of the day, it's not fear-mongering, it's reality check, it's about awareness, it's about stepping out and helping to do something. I mean, this planet has sustained us with 7 billion people on it for a long time. It's now to turn around and go, thank you, okay, I've got to do something to try and help heal you.
And that's a good point. I was going to say that on that, how do you then turn that fear into action?
Or a positive.
Into a positive.
Yeah.
The first thing is that some people say it's, we're just going through some cycle. But we're very lucky that we have a 1 million year ice core sample in Antarctica, which was from the Vostok ice
Did you say
station. It's a 1 million year old ice core sample.
1 million years.
And that shows us that
I know.
the Earth
It's
goes
a
through a cycle every 120 years. It has gone in the past from 240 to 280 parts per million. That's how much carbon is in the air. Back to 240, 280, 240, 280. And you can see this. NASA has all the data. And so we do this dance between 240, 280. And what happens is when that carbon tracks up, temperature tracks up. When the carbon tracks down, temperature tracks down. But in this cycle we're going through, which started at the Industrial Revolution, we've gone from 240, we're at 428.
Right.
And we're more than 140 parts in the atmosphere of carbon, more than we should be. And so what happens with that is temperature tracks with it. So when people think about the climate, it's actually not that it's getting hotter, it's just that all the elements in the system are changing, and so it's becoming unstable. And so you need to understand, firstly, it's the instability in the system that's the problem. And that means we'll get more floods, more droughts, we'll get more sea level rise, we'll get things that are like a big pendulum swinging from side to side. And the thing is that for the last 10,000 years at least, our climate's been very stable. And that's allowed us to have a lot of prosperity, know when to seed crops, when not to seed crops, when the rain's going to come. It's helped us. And for instance, in Africa, over 90% of everybody who lives in Africa are subsistent farmers. So they need to know when to put the crops in. They need to know when the rain's going to come. And if they don't, they can't feed themselves.
True.
So this instability in the system is affecting people in different places all over the world. But we don't seem to see that. So it's a little bit like being little frogs in water that's getting warmer, but we don't realise that it's getting hotter and hotter because we're in that soup.
So for people hearing that, what do you do?
And so the thing that is really exciting is that I'm working with Exeter University and Professor Tim Linton on a new film, but we're looking at how important it is for us to flip the script. And instead of talking about the doom and gloom, we actually need to start looking at countries that are doing amazing things.
So tell us
and
about
start to
those
look at
countries.
these stories.
Flip
So
the script.
For example.
we've got to flip the script. So if we look at our near neighbour in New Zealand, they're already above 85% renewable energy, and they're just
Go the
across the way.
Kiwis.
Go Kiwis.
Yeah, they're ahead
You
of the
look at
time that
Uruguay,
way.
they've been on sustainable renewable energy for 5 years, and they're exporting it. So go Uruguay.
Go Uruguay.
You look at the UK, and they've just turned off their last coal plant, and they're way ahead of their schedule.
Ooh,
go
go the
UK.
Pommies.
And
Tell
you
me
look
about
at-
China.
I have great hope
with
for China
sustainability.
because China has a very large population, and China needs to be able to provide food for them, water for them, and it needs to be able to manage a system that's going to be able to live in. So I do believe that China, given the right ingredients, can also play a role in being a change agent.
That's
And
good
I
if they
think
do.
What are they engaging in now?
China, firstly, are doing a lot with solar.
Great. Fabulous.
And it doesn't mean they're not doing a lot with other things, but they are doing a lot with solar. They're doing conservation on soil. They're also trying to have fish farms that aren't fishing from the ocean so that they can actually not take from the ocean but have land-based farms for those things. And I think that they're setting up opportunities for within their country to adopt change. I think
Good.
the thing is
Only
that we
say
have
China, it's so
we
huge.
have
Yes.
to.
What about
Yes.
Australia, though? What are we doing?
Yeah, so
Well-
how are us the Aussies?
Oi, oi, oi.
oi.
I look at Australia and I think, wow, you know, if you said, do we have all the ingredients to make the most amazing cake ever? Yes.
Yeah, whatever.
As long as it's
not Uranian.
It's going to be
But-
like a bit of a chocolate cake.
And I don't know, but people
Gotta make
living,
one.
Yes, yum.
listening, we're already at 45% renewable energy in Australia. We're 5% off being halfway.
Right.
And so we just have to push to get over that 50%. You know, we're working really hard. AI is actually helping to create dashboards so that you can look at how to blend solar, how you can blend ocean wind, how you can blend electricity off the normal grid, how you can blend all of that and then predict what the models are going to be for the next few weeks so that you can actually have these predictive models and better plan. And I think we need to get on doing that
Yeah.
so that people don't feel too nervous
And what
about
else can
having
we do?
too
Just
much.
the average
It makes me
person at
feel
home,
happy.
Liz, you know, you're hearing this and listening and going, well, what's just like, sometimes it just starts from that little small step, like, you know, the first time you take, you know, that leap.
Yeah.
What can we do?
Well,
Just
I
tell
get
us some
asked that a
basic-
lot.
yeah.
So I'm in the middle of starting to create an app with the Queensland University of Technology for the everyday person.
Of course you
Wow.
are.
To help them work out. So Di and Nicola,
Mm.
if you had an app that helped you understand just what your personal carbon footprint
Yeah,
was,
I like
and it
this.
said,
Yes.
over the next 5 weeks, we take a
Wow.
challenge just to reduce it by 5%. And it's going to be like a little coach that's going to help you work out just things that you could do
Have a
better.
candlelight
Got a
dinner.
mentor.
And,
No
you-
lights.
and it'll help you
That's
do
another
those
next
This is
things.
thing,
great.
isn't it? Yeah.
And
God,
so
you're amazing.
I really want to put that in the
What a
hands
cool
of
way.
people.
Kids would love that too, wouldn't
And
they?
the people that are working on it are the next gen. So they're
Yeah.
all in their early 20s and they're so excited
They
to
know
be
what they're
working
doing
on
with
it
technology.
because they're doing something that's going to help them. And the thing is that anything that we do now in the next few years, it won't have an impact till
Yeah.
2045,
Oh,
between
God.
2046, 2047. And we know we're already overbaked. We're not going to pull back by 2030. So we have to acknowledge that we're going to go through a peak. But what we have to do is we have to look at all the things that we can start to do to start to pull back between the 2040s and the 2050s because we have to hit 2050 and get back to 1.5.
And we're heading that way.
2050, we're
A
heading
lot of the
that way.
countries are
And
heading
so
that way.
we're accelerating, and we do have such clever people here in Australia. But we firstly need to make sure that we have mandates that are going to support it. We need to make sure, no matter what government is in, the mandates that we commit to stay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we
Committed,
we
yeah.
need those commitments because otherwise people won't invest in them.
True.
And then the things won't get built.
Yeah.
And then the systems we need won't get built. So this is not a kind of fly-by-night plan. We need an overall global plan for the next 100 years. And what I loved about having worked in Singapore is that they have a plan for the next 100 years. And people understand that plan.
They're ahead
And
there,
they're
aren't they?
working ahead to do that plan. And so here in Australia, I just want to encourage anyone in
Stick to
government, like we have to
Commit.
make a commitment to the next 100 years on what we're going to do to accelerate across to renewable energy.
What about on a world scale? How's India going with respect to sustainability?
India's
On
amazing.
a scale of 1 to 10.
I can't talk to pollution there, but I can talk to the fact that in the rural sector they decided to go solar.
Great.
And when we were filming there, we would come across these little solar night markets. And so the women during the day charge up solar lamps.
Ah,
And so at night time, they can actually go and buy food in the night. At night time, the children can now study using solar.
great.
So-
First, then the
well,
you
it's
country.
see these things, right? And you think, we
Liz,
can do it. We can do it,
Yeah.
everyone.
Do it.
Thank
and I tell
you.
I'm so
And thank you for
surprised
supporting
why you
the
have
youth.
won all these awards. And I've got to say, because I'm a bit of a sticky beak, but didn't you
Deservedly
get an
so.
award by Fergie as well? The Duchess of York?
Fergie gave me the award. That was
tell us
women.
about that.
That was the women changing the world through media, and I didn't bother to write a speech because I thought I wasn't going to win. And when it got down to the last three, I thought oh my God, I could win this. And then they called out my name. And all I could think of was, I don't have a speech as I walked up there. But
You're
I was,
a natural.
Good on you.
very
Liz, we're
proud.
so proud of
we
you,
are
honestly.
so proud of you. We
Yeah.
can't wait for this app.
And you're a
everything else.
continuing. You just can't keep a good person down for long, can you? It's just
Everybody
But
be
it's-
positive and be hopeful and do what you can do.
Yeah.
Because there are multiple things you can do every week, whether it's having one less meat meal a week, whether it's making sure that you don't
tips.
use all the water, having a 3 or 4 minute shower,
Yep.
make that what you do. You don't actually need to use all that water. Making sure you turn off all your electrical equipment at night time, including computers, so you're not running energy during the house.
At the point,
At
do you
night time,
need to unplug
yeah,
and
no,
take
just turn it off at
off,
that point,
okay.
Yeah.
and make sure you rewire your house so you're on low voltage because you don't need the bright lights. And yay to someone like Woolworths who decided to take their lighting down by 10 or 15%. No one noticed.
We all
Just
better,
to
don't we, under the,
just
to- I'm
the
gonna
lights
show
like
we
that. I don't like the
do,
bright
we do,
lights.
and make sure you have those keep bags and. Don't buy things that are so packaged. You know, we don't need all the
Yeah.
packaging.
In Japan, I've got to
Just-
say, I think that must be one of
Yeah.
the worst as
Yeah.
far
and
as... it's all
get a
pretty,
community
but-
wardrobe going. Like we have friends or different mums and we all similar sizes, and if we need to go to an event, we'll go raid someone's wardrobe first. And we do an exchange every few months where we just swap T-shirts and tops, and
It's a
it's
good
just
idea,
in our
clothing
street.
exchange.
But you can do clothing exchanges and recycle your clothes, like take them somewhere else to be used again. It's so important that
Hand
we
them
make
over than sitting in the wardrobe
everything can
for-
have a
for
second
decades.
life.
Well, Liz,
Yeah.
you have just
They were
blown us
great.
away.
They were actually really woman
We've got a
living
couple of our signature
fearlessly.
questions
Yeah.
before we
What
rock
makes you
and roll.
happy?
Being in nature, the simple
Ditto.
things. The simple things, just the joy of the world.
Is there a fave country after you've been everywhere?
Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
I would, in a heartbeat, it's my favourite place on the planet, and it's where you just get lost in the moment.
Oh, that's
And all the
beautiful.
penguins and seals and bloody whales,
humpbacks.
humpback.
You know what, I've heard
wow.
that from so many different
We're gonna
people.
go, aren't
But
we?
we've got one more
So
question
one
we've
more.
got to
Yes.
ask
Yep.
is, if you could share a back fence with anybody on planet Earth, which you know very well, Liz, who would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. That's a really tough question. But I think it would be David Attenborough.
Oh,
I get it.
Because
Yes.
I would love to talk to him about all his experiences, where he's been, what he's seen over the lifetime of his work, and what kept him going. Because he started in a production unit, and he ended up, you know, being in the homes of millions of people around the world, and he took us to understand nature. And I want to say thank you to him
Wow.
because he inspired me, and I just love to know his stories.
Oh,
You're
how
you're the
wonderful.
female
I was
David
going to say,
Attenborough.
I'm sure he'd like to have you as a neighbour too. Well, Liz, thank you
She's the
so
female
much for
version.
coming on.
What
And we love
joy.
the
Thank
book,
you,
The
Liz.
Women Living Fearlessly. So thank you, and everybody, don't
You're-
forget to share
yeah.
this one, rate and
Totally.
review. And Jodie likes to give her own stars.
Well,
for
I'm
this one. So what
sorry.
do you think,
This,
Jodie? We've got
it's sitting opposite
Liz Courtney
Liz.
here.
I honestly have to say infinity out of 5, because where would we be, and I mean literally our lives, without people like you, quite honestly, helping to heal this magnificent planet of ours. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
Fearlessly.
so
Thank you,
grateful.
Liz.
Yeah,
Gratitude.
bless you. And we'll support you wherever we can.
Oh, thank you so
And
much.
we'll
And
put
thank you for
lots
having
on our
me
show
and
notes.
sharing
Wow.
stories.
Thanks.